Doesn't
We
look
did
any
it. Yay.
good.
Hi, it's so good to see you and be here with you today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Very excited for this. We've been planning this conversation for a long time to share with each of our tribes and communities. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Amy, and then I'll do the same.
Okay, perfect. I love how I feel like the universe has been planning this longer than we have because we both knew about each other for so many years. But it wasn't until a few months ago that we actually connected. So I think this is extra special that there's been so much momentum behind today, long before we even really knew each other. So my name is Amy B. Scher. I am an author and energy therapist, and I help people release blocks to well-being, to happiness, to just being their best, happiest, and healthiest selves. I learned all of my work from my own experience with chronic illness, chronic Lyme disease, and an entire list of other diagnoses that took pages and pages to fill. I actually just shredded my list a few years ago when I found it. I went, I don't need this anymore. But one of my biggest discoveries through this sort of decade of my life where I was, very debilitated from chronic illness was that our mind, body, and spirit are all one. And this was mind blowing to me because it's not often discussed in the medical community. By no fault of the medical communities, it's just not something that comes up in sort of that area of that sort of community. And so I discovered on my own that if I really wanted to heal, I was going to have to address the me inside of my body and not just all of the symptoms. And I went on a big journey to do that. I ended up finally getting and staying well after many false starts and tries and fits and spurts. Thank you. And have gone on to help thousands of others to look at sort of our emotional landscape to see what could be misaligned in our body that is making our body unhappy and sort of trying to get our attention. And so I use energy therapy, which is a way of addressing mind, body, and spirit through various techniques to help people. And I'm just so happy to be here in conversation with you.
Thank you. That was a beautiful synopsis of your journey and what you do now. So I'm Dr. Kelly McCann. I'm a medical doctor. I am board certified in internal medicine and pediatrics. I had always been interested in holistic medicine and what is now called functional medicine, even though I didn't know it at the time. Originally, I wanted to go to acupuncture school, and I made a deal with myself that if I got into medical school, I would go. And if I didn't, I'd go to acupuncture school. And I was actually really disappointed. I got into 4 medical schools and I was like, darn it. Okay, universe, I guess I got to go to medical school. So I did. And then along the way, trying to optimize my overachieving self, I got a master's in public health and tropical medicine along with my medical degree. I did 2 residencies, internal medicine and pediatrics, concurrently. And then thankfully I was released from conventional medicine training and got to start to do what I had intended to do, which was really learn all the tools and skills for helping people as holistically as possible. So I learned medical acupuncture, did Reiki training and healing touch, had always been really interested in the mind-body connection, was very powerful and important for me. Somewhere along the journey, I got trained in functional medicine. I spent time in Tucson with Dr. Andrew Weil and his program in integrative medicine. And then I took a deeper dive into mold and chronic infections like Lyme disease, learned that many patients who were very sensitive had mast cell activation. And so I just kept putting more tools in my toolkit so I could help more and more people. And then somewhere along the line, I also got a master's in spiritual psychology at the University of Santa Monica. And that was probably the most useful and challenging degree that I have ever gotten, because it really forced me to look inside of myself and to and to evaluate what are the things that I believe about myself, and how are they serving me or no longer serving me. And it was a 2-year program. It was really intense. I remember initially feeling uh, so disgruntled because it was requiring me to be vulnerable in a way that I was not used to being. I'm the doctor, I'm the expert, I don't get to be vulnerable, and yet I was able to see that only through vulnerability were people able to really connect and to have that level of intimacy. um, and so learn some really powerful lessons about what it means to be vulnerable and how to show up not only for myself but for my patients. And my favorite conversations with my patients are really about the the bridge of the mind body connection, and how is our body speaking with us. And I think it's really propelled the patients who are willing to go there to the level of healing that everyone is really wanting for themselves.
Yeah. And I feel like we all, at least I did, I came to that last. It was like, well, okay, nothing's working as fast or as well as I wanted to. Let me try this thing that was here and free all along. Right. But we come to it last. And I don't know if that's just part of the process. I often wonder what would have happened if I would have embraced this sooner. And now I think patients are introduced to it much sooner. When I was sick, this was like in 2000, in the early 2000s, and that this just wasn't part of the conversation. Nobody was talking about this on the Lyme or chronic illness message boards. The doctors weren't talking about it. I had one doctor that I remember asked me sort of, you know so how is everything in your life? Like, how's your relationship and stuff? And I remember thinking to myself, why is he asking about that? I'm here for Lyme disease. Now I understand he was wise enough to try to ask that question. I definitely was not willing to listen to it or answer it, because I got defensive, at least within myself. But the conversation has really expanded now. And thank goodness, because more people have access to this. And
Yes, thank goodness.
yes, yes. And just to let everybody know, the chat is not working for some reason. So, but you can ask your questions in the Q&A. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a little Q&A button. And if you click that, you'll be able to type your question in there and we'll watch those.
Yes, thank you. It is really amazing. What I've been thinking about recently is that when we have physical problems, we go to the doctor, right? So there's something wrong with my anatomy, there's something wrong with my physiology. I need to go to the doctor because it's a mechanical problem, right? It's a biological, chemical problem.
Yeah.
And then if we have emotional, mental problem, we're going to go to our therapist or something like that. So we go to somebody to deal with this.
Yeah.
If you think you have a spiritual problem, you might go to a rabbi or a minister or some sort of spiritual help, right? We can't think about the body that way anymore because that's not how we're designed. Our minds and our bodies and our spirit are linked, and hopefully more and more practitioners and patients will wake up to this idea that we really do have to treat the whole person and not just give it lip service. I mean, I do think that one of the challenges for medical doctors is we don't have any training in this, really.
Yeah.
So it's not their fault if they don't
Absolutely.
know how to ask these questions, because they don't know how to deal with the answers.
Yes, yes. I think that's totally true. And I think one of the things that I've noticed over the years is that I'll get emails from doctors, psychiatrists, not saying, I don't know what you're doing, but my patient told me that they were going to you. And after they started going to their liver enzymes regulated, or now, some of their immune markers are normal, or, so I think patients deserve a lot of credit for being courageous enough to try these things and brave enough to also share with their doctors, because this is how doctors start to understand that while they may not be responsible for having this information and knowing how to do these things, that it's available, and that that just to broach the subject or to then share with other patients, that can be enough. Patients are so resilient and resourceful that they can go out and find this. But so many people, like, I had no idea it existed, right? I didn't know until literally nothing else was working. And I was kind of like, well, I'm out of money. I'm out of options. What can I do? And that was the only reason I ever turned inward. I don't think I would have ever looked to the extent that I did. And I mean, I grew up, kind of as a hippie child, and I read Ram Dass and all the spiritual books. But I thought that positive thinking was what made a difference. And it's not. It's so much more. It's really, I see it as, illness is calling us to pay attention to our lives. What do we want? Are we living in fear? Do we have boundaries? All of those things. And I thought, the whole time I had Lyme disease, well, I'm so positive. Why am I not getting better? And it's very different to force positive thinking than to actually feel good in yourself. And so, I think we try our best, but it's a journey to get to the right information as well.
Yes, absolutely. It's really interesting that sometimes, I love your story in that you did everything that you could to avoid doing the thing that you needed to do the most.
I'm a Virgo. I checked everything off the list. I did it all right. I listened to everybody. Then I was like, oh no, I see where this is going. And I think we do, like, we get to it when we get to it. And I was like, I had been to therapy. I was happy to talk about things. I was happy to do the things, the steps, but I never was really willing to be honest with myself. And I think that's where true mind, body, spirit healing kicks in. What is going on inside of me? What am I so afraid of? In what ways am I people pleasing? Or what ways am I not being? I mean, it really comes down, as I see it, to in what ways am I not being my true self? And why? And how can I fix that? Either internally or then maybe in some relationships and externally. But yeah, I tried to avoid it at all costs. And then eventually I went, oh no, I think I'm going to have to figure this out. And it was the thing. It was the thing. And I'm sure all of the therapies I did before that helped, but none of them actually did the thing. Like, none of them actually, and we talk about this, no doctor, no matter how wonderful, no therapist, no matter how brilliant, can do the thing for you that you have to do for yourself.
Right.
It's so annoying. We want someone else to do it, but they just can't.
Yeah, just take a pill and make like all that stuff get better.
It would be delightful, right? It's not the point of life, apparently, but it would be so much easier.
Yeah, not the point of life.
No.
And, I think that's really probably the crux of it. Is the journey of illness is a journey of exploration. It's a journey of turning inward and really starting to allow the language of the body to show you where you need to do the work.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And listen, I mean, we wouldn't pay attention any other way until something comes and desecrates our life. I always say this, like, it had to be illness for me. There would be no other way I would stop a life that I was micromanaging so perfectly to then change everything and throw everything up in the air, burn it all down and rebuild it. There just would be no reason I would have ever done that. And so I think when we see illness not as a convenience, but a calling, we can use it. Like, if this is going to be here, we should use the heck out of it and come out on the other side better. And I really feel like the whole time I was sick, all I wanted was to go back to pre-Lyme. And now, in hindsight, I've been well almost 15 years. I mean, much longer than I was ever sick. And I think, oh my gosh, I wasn't healthy before either. Like, now I am healthy. So I wanted to go back, but because we think, oh, I was healthy until I got bitten by the tick or until I got this autoimmune condition. But you can't get chronically ill if you are perfectly healthy, mind, body, and spirit prior to that break. That's how I see it.
So dive a little bit deeper into that, Amy, because I think it's really important for people to understand what what does healthy mean, mind, body, spirit? Because I think a lot of people out there have this idea that, yeah, I'm healthy, and then all of a sudden I got cancer, or then all
Yeah.
of a sudden I got this autoimmune